Hey everyone, I'm Carolyn.
And I'm Tamika.
We're here from David Tree, and it's been a while since we've connected in this way, so we're happy to be here.
Yeah, we've missed you all. And I know that there's been so much intensity, and we hope that today's conversation will help you with that intensity. And I think it will. Um, we've been talking lately about something that kind of goes hand in hand with our meditation practice, or if you're not a meditator at all, a way that you can access the benefits of meditation without formally meditating. And that is just sitting in silence. And it's interesting because there is just so much mental congestion right now. There's layers and layers of things going on in the world, in our communities, in our families, in our with our loved ones, that it can be very, very overwhelming, and it can be very difficult to sort through. But the problem is that there's also so much busyness that there's really not a whole lot of time. I think a lot of people are experiencing this. You might be in a different situation slightly, but a lot of people are experiencing this frenetic pace that is just relentless, and they're just going, 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 going. So I think that it's been interesting when we've been talking about this lately, Carolyn, around something that we can do either in addition to if you already meditate, or if you can't meditate, you can just sit. And the benefits of that are absolutely incredible, sitting in silence. And you had a story about this the other day that I thought was really interesting.
Yeah, it would have been a day where I wouldn't have been able to meditate because I just had so much almost like electrical energy running through my body. It was one of those really fast-paced days, and I knew I had to do something. So I went out for a walk, and it didn't really help, which usually it would, just to be outside and in nature. But when I got to the park, I just realized, okay, you just have to stop. And so I just sat. I sat on the bench and I looked at the pond and the moon coming up, and I was in complete silence. No phone, no conversations with people walking by. And that reset me.
And it's so interesting because when there's so much evidence about how meditation resets us, that we may not realize how just forget about all those techniques, which I love those techniques. Actually, that's what we teach. Because I think, there's not one type of meditation for a person. If there's a billion people on earth, there's a billion styles of meditation, and they're all valid. But forget about all those techniques for a moment and thinking about what you're thinking, or noticing your thoughts, or even pacing your breathing, all those things. Just sitting and looking at the pond, or lately I've been sitting outside on the porch with Nova when we're not in a heat wave, and sitting there, and I am petting her, but other than that there's nothing going on. I'm just sitting there, and sometimes I even feel guilty. I think to myself, I should be meditating right now. This would be perfect. I should be practicing yoga. I could do some stretches while I'm here. And that just shows you how programmed we are to think that there's a better moment than just the moment we're in, where we could be listening to the birds, sitting there in silence, doing nothing. It's incredible how programmed, like for myself anyway, I'll speak for myself, is that I realize that I'm programmed that way, that it's almost like an indulgence if I'm not doing my practices. But
Yet it can be really freeing, can't it, to just do the nothingness?
yes, yeah, it almost feels, with the volume of things and responsibilities that I have right now, and I know many of you have too, it almost feels not okay, like not okay to just sit and just be in silence. And it actually is okay, and it's something that is studied, and there's lots of scientific research to prove that, forget meditation for a moment, just sitting in silence will change your brain. So they've done studies on mice. That's another conversation, because I don't always feel comfortable with those conversations about what we do to animals, but we'll save that for another day. But that they've done studies on the brain of mice, and noticed that there are actually changes in their brains when there's silence. So I don't think they're sitting there with a mudra doing metta or tonglen or they're not focused on a candle doing candle gazing. They're just in silence, and it dramatically improves blood flow to the brain, blood pressure overall. The research is really vast around just sitting in silence. It's pretty incredible.
I mean, you wouldn't think it because it's like there's like, what am I doing here? I'm amazed.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other thing too that I think some of us feel heavy hearted about, mm, the way that, where is the moral compass of our world right now? And obviously, that moral compass begins with our own choices in serving the collective instead of just always serving our own needs. Obviously, it begins there. But sitting in silence helps you process what's happened in your life in the daytime or whenever, so that you can be a better human, so that you can make different choices. So it actually, the research shows that it changes our identity. Just sitting in silence changes identity. So if you think about, maybe you had a run-in with your neighbor, or maybe you had a difficult conversation with your mother-in-law, and then you're worried about something at work, or you're worried about finances, or you're worried about your kids. There's all these layers, and there's no time to really sort through them all necessarily. But if you're sitting in silence and allowing your brain, not trying to control your thoughts, but allowing yourself and your brain to just sort things out and make connections, and just seeing what happens mentally in the mental work that you're doing, and not even work, but just what naturally happens, then you might start to say, hey, or not say consciously, but there's creative solutions come up, like, wait a second, I could do this for my mother-in-law instead of what she's asking me to do. Or maybe I don't have to be as afraid of what's coming at work, because fear has never helped me in the past. And I don't need to be in fear about this in the future. You can start to make yourself a better person because you have more solutions that have come through being with yourself rather than interacting with the external world, whether it's your phone. I mean, sometimes when I feel like I have to zone out or chill out, I turn to this, and this doesn't give me that. What sitting in silence does, it just doesn't.
It's like pressing the pause button in a way, isn't it? It doesn't have to be like for 15 minutes or anything. It could be like 3 minutes.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Exactly. And that's the thing, is sometimes we're warriors about everything, and we think that unless we do it for 20 minutes there's no point, or unless we do it for 10 minutes there's no point. Well, there is a point. There is a point. And it's that seduction piece. If you can just get yourself to sit in nature quietly, you're not going to want to leave. It's, you got to seduce yourself though to get there. If you can get past the resistance. I mean, it's like this with lots of things, but if you can get past the resistance, get into that place of sitting in silence, then everything just falls into place from there. Quite often, not for everyone and not every day, but it does happen that way often. So I love our meditation course that we teach, and all the techniques that we teach people, which is a lot of things you probably haven't ever considered in terms of meditating, things that aren't common knowledge. But if you can't do that course with us, or you can't meditate and you feel like it's beyond you, then just sit.
It's so perfect. Just sit.
I mean, I tell my dog to sit at least 3 times a day. So now I'm telling you guys.
I'm in. I'm in.
Me too. It's great to connect back with the community. We love you and we miss you, and we'd love to hear from you in the comments below if this helped you in any way.
Mwah.
Bye. See you soon.
See you.